And I welcome everyone to Press TV's News Review program, where we get in-depth in one of the day's top stories. A new report suggests that British forces are providing training and support to Saudi-backed forces and mercenaries in Yemen. According to news outlet Declassified UK, some 30 British soldiers have been stationed at Al-Ghaydah airport in the eastern Yemeni province of Mahra. A local journalist was cited by the outlet as saying that British troops there are a fully fledged force. The report challenges London's claims that it is not party to the war on Yemen. The UK has long been criticized for its arms sales to the Saudi-led coalition, which has been waging a deadly war on Yemen for over 6 years. Joining us now for the program is Tony Gosling, investigative journalist, joining us out of Bristol. Mr. Robert Fantina, author and journalist, joining us from Kitchener, Ontario. Gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you both to the program. I guess, Tony, we'll start there with you in Bristol there. Your thoughts somewhere in the midst of all this, to the truth lies, where do you think it's at?
Okay, so this is actually quite important news from Yemen. I mean, it's always bad news. This, I'm afraid, as a British journalist, this is bad news for us. And it shows that really it's more evidence, isn't it, that this is a proxy war, that this is not something the Saudis are just doing for their own interests. And obviously, you know, there are all sorts of questions about what the money, if it was just Saudi. The British troops are in there. We know also that there's been a lot of RAF personnel in Saudi Arabia itself. So this is really, it's becoming a little bit clearer. Maybe the scales are falling from our eyes a bit more, as they've done. I mean, it's a great job, Declassified UK. I've got to say, excellent job that this website has done. Of course, none of this will be being reported on any of the mainstream outlets here in the UK. You might find something in the newspapers tomorrow, a few lines, potentially. But really, this is the Julian Assange tradition. Declassified UK is, for example, John Pilger wrote a very important book with Mark Curtis, the co-founder of Declassified UK. These are the journalists, like myself, who are basically shut out of the UK mass media, even though we're more than qualified to be on there, because the media in Britain and the West generally is becoming a place where it's almost impossible to expose. Look what's happened to Assange as he's exposed these sorts of crimes. That's why it's called Declassified. This is the job of good journalists, is to find out what our government and our taxpayers' money is being spent on criminal acts, basically gangsterism of various sorts, and to expose it to the public so that they can hopefully, through the voting system, correct these errors and also shame these people into resignation. Now, this is not the role anymore, really, for the last 20 years or so of the Western media. And so it's up to Declassified, etc., to dig these facts out and to expose them. So there's a Saudi-backed force, and then what they're doing is they're also backing mercenaries. So this is really guns for hire. So this is a very important piece of work done by an excellent journalist. Mark Curtis's book, really, Secret Affairs, Britain's Collusion with Radical Islam, is an absolute must-read. And of course, it never gets talked about, and Mark you never see him on the mainstream news, because this is taboo. That's the word for it, taboo. You're not allowed to seek to talk these facts. And in fact, I'm sure there's quite a lot of people at the Ministry of Defence that would like to see Mark Curtis in jail alongside Julian Assange for exposing these sorts of things. So anyway, by Classified UK, I think they should get a medal, and the Ministry of Defence, I think, would like to probably send them to jail.
Thank you, Tony. Robert, I'd like to welcome you to the program here. Your initial thoughts on this, please.
I think we're seeing certainly what Tony said, but also we have to remember that the UK, the United States, most Western powers aren't interested in human rights. They're not interested in peace. They don't care about suffering people. They care about profits. They care about power. The UK makes a lot of money from its arms sales to the Saudis, and the fact that UK soldiers are now training or actually involved in the war against the Yemeni people is not surprising. It's all part and parcel of the same thing. This idea that money is to be made. Saudi Arabia wants a new government in Yemen that is more friendly to it. So it doesn't matter how many people die. You mentioned 250,000 Yemenis have died from starvation lack of medicine, lack of electricity. These are horrible ways of dying. And yet the UK obviously doesn't care about them because they are selling arms to Saudi Arabia, and they are now providing soldiers to support the mercenaries. This is, as you mentioned, guns for hire. They are paid assassins. There is no justice in this whatsoever.
And Tony, I mean, can we basically compare this to the U.S. scandal when it came to the fighting against the Sandinistas? But the front agency on that was, we know they used Contras to go after the Sandinista government. We know that they didn't really have boots on the ground per se, but they kind of did because the funding was up to the CIA. The weaponizing the Contras was up to the CIA. Basically, it's almost that if there's really British soldiers there training the mercenaries, that might be the only basically tweak of, but basically there's a lot of overlapping similarities there, aren't there?
Well, it's a good comparison to make. You're quite right. Look, it's a black operation. Let's be absolutely clear about this. A deniable criminal operation to have these British troops, British soldiers, or British forces, whatever they are, officers, I would imagine, itself. Now, this is absolutely new information. We didn't know this at all. Black operation, which means that this is being secretly kept from Parliament, kept from the Intelligence Security Committee, even, which is very close to the defence industry, to the arms dealers. So the MPs are being excluded from any part of this decision. What it is really a rogue or black operation that's part of a much wider. I suppose this is also looking at the balkanisation, isn't it, of the Middle East. What are the wider plans in the Middle East? I don't think it's just about money. I think money is a tool, and obviously this is used as an excuse and as a reason as to, we're just. There's much more to it than that. There's geopolitics involved as well. I noticed that the Declassified UK has also exposed various other secret things that, for example, secret committees going on here in Britain. Another one of their stories this week, where parliamentarians, it's actually been revealed by Alan Duncan, who is the former defence minister, who has now been excluded from the government. And he says in his memoirs, this is due to the Israel lobby's pressure within Britain to exclude him. Now, he's very even-handed when it comes to the Palestinians. He believes in Palestinian human rights. And as a result of the Israel lobby pressure, this minister has been excluded from Boris Johnson's government. That's what he says in his memoirs. That's not me saying that. There's an enormous amount of pressure to actually steer British foreign policy through the lobbies like the Israel lobby, and he actually says that they blocked his appointment. So to have secret committees between the arms dealers and the Ministry of Defence and senior ministers in order to try and get policy through that way, and actually behind the backs of our elected officials, proves that this is not democratic. It is a black operation, and it should be shut down immediately under international law.
And Robert, why hide it from your MPs? In respect, you're hiding it from your people because obviously they represent constituencies. I mean, there's already so many MPs that are on the fence with respect to further supporting the Saudis. And then when you're hiding actual involvement of British troops on the ground, why?
The people, the powers that be, know that the average person doesn't want to support this war. However, as Tony further mentioned, it's to further the geopolitical goals of various governments, in addition to the profits that I mentioned, and so they keep it secret, they keep it quiet. You mentioned the Sandinistas under President Reagan in the United States. Going back a little bit further, in the late 50s, early 60s, the U.S., in violation of international law, had several thousand troops in Vietnam, 2,000 or 3,000 troops. The general public didn't know about this, and we see how that turned out. It just went from bad to worse to disastrous. So the government doesn't want the people because they may rise up, they'll vote against them, and they will defeat their goals for power and profits around the world.
Thank you, both of you gentlemen. Stay safe. Always a pleasure to have you both on. Tony Gosling there joining us from Bristol, and Mr. Robert Fantina joining us from Kitchener, Ontario. And viewers, that's a wrap for this segment of your Press TV's News Review program. Thank you for tuning in, and goodbye for now.